I really want to help you obtain a Pokemon card grail. That is why I am going to give away $1,000 to one lucky subscriber. The only caveat is it has to be spent on Pokemon cards. And if you want to win, here's what you have to do. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel and then leave a like and a comment on this video right up here. Come back on February 23rd, Friday, February 23rd, where we will announce the winner at the beginning of the video. Good luck. Do you ever, this could just be me, do you ever just sit there and think about Pokemon cards? Obviously, we all think about Pokemon cards, but I mean like you're in the middle of a conversation or you're out doing something and all of a sudden something pops in your head and you're like, why is this Pokemon card set this way? Like, I wonder why things are the way that they are when it comes to Pokemon cards. I know I'm probably losing people right away. In this video, I promise this is going to have a purpose. I promise I'm going to get to the point really quickly. First of all, I just want to say, in no way, shape, or form am I making any recommendations, especially when it comes to buying habits or anything like that. The thing that I love about Pokemon is there's so much that happens. There's so many different niches that you can go into. Obviously, Pokemon's been around for a long time, and I really love studying the trends, trying to analyze the market and understand what's going on, so that way we can make the best decisions when it comes to spending our collection dollars, because I firmly believe that the best way to enjoy the hobby is to make sure that you don't feel over invested in it. Like, you want to be able to get as much out of this hobby for as cheap as possible, and then that will keep you in the hobby for the long run. I think one of the reasons Pokemon has been around for so long is because they've paid so much attention to the end consumer, making sure that they make stuff readily available, making sure that they have product available. Obviously, we went through a point in time where that wasn't the case, but Pokemon did what they could during that time to break out of it, and here we are in a much better situation. I think Pokemon has done a really good job to make sure that they cater to the end consumer and making sure that everything is available and affordable and everything like that. This information, all of these videos are really kind of to try and make people think and try and get a better understanding of what's going on in the market. And a lot of times my brain, obviously, not a great brain, right? Like, it's just all over the place. It runs wild all the time. And maybe I'm thinking about something that you're not thinking about, and trying to get a better understanding together as a collective group, I think, is really, really important. This is Shining Legends. So this is an Elite Trainer box of Shining Legends right here. This came out in 2017. We're actually not going to really talk about Shining Legends at all. I don't even know why I'm using this as a prop. This came out in, I think it was July of 2017. So almost 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, Shining Legends came out. And the thing about holiday sets and specialty sets, we've talked about these a couple of times over the past year or so. We've talked about the impact of specialty sets and how much more supply it puts into the market, right? And it kind of overwhelms us a little bit because there's so many more Pokemon cards that come out here. Specialty sets really, really cater more to the collector than they do to the competitive player. And there's a lot of things that happen with Pokemon that are driven by the competitive player. But if you look at the past, several holiday sets, several specialty sets that came out, a lot of times nowadays it's just kind of reprint sets. And I think that's what my frustration is when it comes to some of these specialty sets. We had a set like Paldean Fates, great artwork, really cool looking cards, easy pull rates, make it a lot of fun to open up, but there's just a lot of reprints. Basically every regular art just has a little bit more shimmer to it, a little bit more shine to it when it comes to the regular art EXs, but they're knockoffs of cards that we already have in existence. So really, from a competitive standpoint, when I'm looking at it with my competitive hat on, I'm like, I already have these cards. I've already seen these cards. I already have these cards available to me. Why am I opening up these cards again? And you really haven't had a strong specialty set that caters to competitive play at all pretty much ever. I mean, you've had a couple of them that have done okay, like even Celebrations, for example, with Kyogre and Mew, like those did okay. Obviously, Flying Pikachu won an international event here in the United States. That was a huge, huge thing, and Celebrations really thought of as a collector set. But other than that, I mean, you might have Pokemon Go, like I guess the Radiant Charizard has done well, Pokestop has done well, but there's nothing from Paldean Fates that really drive the competitive market. And the same thing happened with Shining Legends. There wasn't a lot in Shining Legends that really drove the competitive market. There was a couple of ideas that people tinkered around with, a couple of things that saw light play, but other than that, if you look at Shining Legends right now, and this Elite Trainer box has gone down quite a bit in value. At one point in time, a year and a half ago, it was over $300, but it it has dropped down to about $260, $270 right now. So still very expensive considering the fact that the MSRP on that specialty set, $50, right? And there were a ton of Shining Legends products available. This came out during a boom in Pokemon where it was like, Pokemon's getting really popular again. Pokemon cards are getting really popular again. We had a point where Pokemon Go came out, really brought a lot of interest. We're talking early Sun and Moon era where there was an overprinting of Guardians Rising, of Sun and Moon Base, of Burning Shadows, of Crimson Invasion. And yeah, while those sets aren't super exciting for a lot of people to open, the Sun and Moon Base, the Crimson Invasion, though the part of the reason that those sealed booster boxes are trailing so far behind what we see from a lot of the other Sun and Moon sets is because they were printed so much more to kind of meet the demand of what got brought in by Evolutions, by Pokemon Go, and that's really when the bulk market crashed. If you look at Shining Legends, this sealed product right here, this Elite Trainer box has dropped quite a bit, but the set itself, not a whole lot of cards in the set that really warrant even opening up any sealed packs of Shining Legends, especially when you figure the packs are like $28 a piece. I did write down some comparisons in case you were wondering. Now that we've spent 5 minutes going over a lot of different details, this is a video about Crown Zenith. Can't you tell? Like, this is totally a video about Crown Zenith. It makes total sense. So if we look at Shining Legends and comparing the performance of Shining Legends to the potential of what you might see in Crown Zenith. Now, first of all, again, not a recommendation. Crown Zenith, very early in the game. There's a lot of outside factors which impacted price, especially when it came to Shining Legends. But when you look at the actual guts of Shining Legends, you have 5 cards that are above $20. 5. That's it. One of them is above 100. That's the test tube Mewtwo. Like, that is the only card that is above $100. Then you go all the way down to $50 because you have another card that's above $50, and that is the Rainbow Rare Mewtwo GX. Then you have to go down to $30 to find the Shining Mew. And then you have a couple of cards that are above $20. In total, you have 5 cards in the set that are worth over $20. Now, over the past year, we've had release and release and release of Crown Zenith. And a lot of cards have just absolutely been destroyed because there has been so much product that has come out. We had the release of the Elite Trainer box just over a year ago. It came out in January of 2023. And then it was a staggered release for the next 4 months, basically, until the last product finally came out in May, and then all of a sudden Pokemon was like, well, let's print more. Let's put out another Morpeko box. Let's put out another a Lugia box. Let's put out all these additional boxes. So then they did GameStop exclusives, and they did all these additional products that came out for Crown Zenith, really driving the price point down of a lot of different sets. However, Crown Zenith has been so much fun for a lot of people to open because of the great pull rates, because of the great artwork, not a whole lot of competitive connotations because they're basically all reprints, but there's a huge surplus of ultra rares in the set. If you look at the singles in the set, and again, comparing it to what we saw from Shining Legends, there are six cards in Crown Zenith that are above $20. So compared to 5 for Shining Legends, very similar. You only have 1 that's above $75. So if you remember, Shining Legends has 1 above $100. Crown Zenith just has 1 above $75. That's the Giratina. You have 1 above $50, just like Shining Legends. That's the Mewtwo V-Star from Crown Zenith, just like the Mewtwo GX from Shining Legends. You have 1 above $40. That's the Arceus V-Star, the gold Arceus V-Star. You don't have any other ones above 40 in Shining Legends. Then you have a couple of them, 2 of them above 30, 1 more above 20. So very similar when it comes to the pricing pattern, except the big difference is this is $260, whereas the Crown Zenith Elite Trainer box you can find right now for like $40. Now, part of that is because it's been reprinted so much, and I know, Fanny, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but really what I'm trying to do is let's trigger our brains to try and figure out, okay, well, what does things look like? When is the ideal time to maybe buy my sealed copy of the Crown Zenith Elite Trainer box? When do I want to start buying it? Because if you look at the price points right now, kind of level, and I'm going to flip you guys around so you can see exactly what I am talking about. Here's the graph for the Crown Zenith Elite Trainer box. You can see at one point in time, it actually did go up quite a bit. It was up to $65. Then again in August, jumped back up to $65 again. And then we had a large reprint, not just of Crown Zenith Elite Trainer boxes, but of a lot of different Crown Zenith products. Those mini tins, products that hit the store shelves again, and then dropped considerably down in January of 2024, where it hit basically $35 for an Elite Trainer box, only a few dollars above wholesale cost. Now it has rebounded a little bit, and it's hovered relatively flat over the past month, sitting at $42.68 right now. So again, not a recommendation to buy anything, but start thinking, okay, well, Crown Zenith Elite Trainer boxes, are they at the cheapest point that they're going to be at? Or right now, do I want to wait longer? Because if you look at this set and compare it to past sets, now Shining Legends, obviously not the best example because it's not going to be opened a lot. And obviously we had this big pandemic, which caused a major buying shift from a lot of these older sets. But Shining Legends Elite Trainer boxes were sitting on store shelves in clearance at the beginning of the pandemic, right before the pandemic started. I remember when Shining Legends originally came out, we were trying to unload Elite Trainer boxes of Shining Legends at basically $35, basically cost, basically what Elite Trainer boxes for Crown Zenith are going for right now. So I don't know if we're looking at a time where Crown Zenith Elite Trainer boxes are going to get a little bit cheaper, but you have to ask yourself, is this a set worth buying for the long term? Are people going to be excited to open up this set for a very long time? And if you look at all the artworks in it and all the beautiful cards, a few chase cards, I think that those are different indicators that you want to kind of analyze while you're making the best decision for your collecting budget. Here's the booster pack for Crown Zenith. Obviously, all up and down, all over the place. It really goes in ebbs and flows, and it's going to continue to do that for the next couple of years because there's going to be additional product that gets released. It's just going to be a very, very weird run, like what we've seen from a lot. You know, we saw the same thing from Evolving Skies. That's what you see from booster packs that are basically printed during the modern time because there's such a huge shift as far as how many are moving, especially when they're at a cheaper price point. But at one point in time, these were selling for $5 a piece, then dropped all the way down to about $3.75 in August, and then jumped back up to about $5 a piece, dropped back down to about $3.50, jumped back up to about $4.50, sitting at $3.92 right now. And again, now that we're over a year removed from Crown Zenith, and Crown Zenith is readily available all over the place. You can still find them walking into Walmarts. You can find them walking into Targets. You can still see Elite Trainer boxes sitting over there. I don't know if we're going to get to a point where Pokemon really is printing any more of this. I think we're at a point now where there's a lot of inventory that's out there. There's a lot of supply that's out there. So it's all going to be based off of demand and what demand looks like down the road. So if you find good deals on things, now might be the time to look at them. Here we've got a listing of how Crown Zenith prices have performed ever since release day. So if you look on the pre-sale items on the left-hand side, these are screenshots of what Crown Zenith came out of the gate as. Right away, opening morning of Crown Zenith on TCG Player, you can see that Luminian was selling for $18.77. It has dropped over 50%. Some of these are not as bad as what you may have thought. Now, one of the rubs with Luminian is Luminian still very competitive, very playable. So this card it makes more sense that it wouldn't have a 75-80% drop like what we would expect from a lot of these other cards. It's dropped down to $9.22, where if you look at the Raihan from the Galarian Gallery, $17.34 all the way down to $3.73. That's a 78.49% drop. Now, that's not even the biggest drop, and neither is the next one. Grant went from $16.62 on opening day down to $1.67, so you're looking at an 89% drop on that one. That one is also not the biggest drop of the set. We'll look at that one in a few minutes here. Drapion V, this one also fairly competitive at the beginning. It's lost a little bit of competitive playability. $19.99, especially now that Mew is kind of rotating out. It's dropped down to $2.93, so you're looking at an 85% drop on this one. This is kind of what you can expect from a lot of Paldean Fates. We're going to talk about Paldean Fate single prices tomorrow, but if you look at how Crown Zenith has performed with good pull rates like this, and as more and more of these cards that people really want to get are getting pulled, because pack prices are cheaper, so it makes it almost like, okay, well, I can spend $3-4 on opening a pack to chase a card. It's not as big of a deal as opening up a base set pack trying to pull a Charizard right now, right? Like, it's a huge difference there. So this is kind of what you can expect, and why it's so important not to FOMO when it comes to the release of a set, especially a set like Paldean Fates, which is loaded with great pulls, but also there's so many ultra rares, it makes it very difficult to kind of collect the entire set, to kind of master the set. If you look at the Regigigas, this one has dropped 74% from $19.62 down to $5.09. Roxanne has dropped 66% from $19.25 down to $6.54. Adamant has dropped over 83%. This one started out at $21.46 down to $3.63. Again, this is what I'm talking about. Cool artwork. I love Crown Zenith, so don't get me wrong. I love Crown Zenith, but a lot of reprints, a lot of cards that already are in existence, just a lot better of artworks on them. Hisuian Samurott V, $20.97 down to $5.07. That's a 75.82% 52% drop. The Chorus's Experiment went from $20.66 down to $9.26. That's a 55% drop. We've got a 76% drop on the Zamazenta V from $24.91 down to $5.95. The Zeraora V-Star and the Zeraora V-Max, both of them dropping about 71%. The V-Star down to $7.21, the V-Max down to $6.38. A lot of these cards getting very, very inexpensive, very cheap. So if you haven't found a time to complete your Crown Zenith Master Set, now might be the time to really start looking at it, because I mean, this is kind of at the point now where these may have kind of hit the basement, where they've kind of hit that they've bottomed out in a lot of pricing. Zacian V, $27.80 on opening day. It's dropped down to $10.45. That's a 62.41% drop. That's actually not as bad as what we see from some of the other ones. Zacian V, not necessarily a competitive card anymore, just something that a lot of people seem to enjoy as far as the artwork goes. The Hisuian Samurott V-Star has dropped over 83% from $27.54 down to $4.54. The Melanie from the Galarian Gallery has dropped over 78% from $27.50 down to $5.96. The Raikou V, this one's definitely impacted a bit by competitive playability, especially when you look at the Miraidon deck. Things are going to change because you do have rotation looming. $32.86. It's dropped down to $16.66, so that's about a 49% drop. The Simisear V-Star from $30.22 down to $5.94. That's an 80.34% drop. The Entei V also impacted a little bit by competitive playability. That's why this one has dropped less than 50%. I think $29.14 down to $14.97. So that's a 48.63% drop. The Deoxys V-Star has dropped about 73.5% from $35.44 down to $9.35. The Darkrai V-Star not doing terribly, from $35.41 down to $15.91. That's about a 55% drop. The Hisuian Zoroark V-Star, I always chuckle when I look at this one because this one was so interesting. You can see the market price was established at $33.07 on opening morning, but if you look, got bought out at that price point very, very quickly and jumped all the way up to $79.95. This card was almost at $100 opening weekend because it was in demand by a lot of people. People thought it was going to do extremely well. Look at where it is now. It's down to $11.96, so that's a 63.83% drop. The Glaceon V-Star, beautiful card, has gone from $50.86 down to $16.46. That's a 67.64% drop. The Cynthia's Ambition from $46.59 down to $9.55. Single digits for Cynthia's Ambition is very interesting. 79.5% drop on that one. Gardenia's Vigor has dropped 81.5% from $37.15 down to $6.91. Here's one of those cards that's still above $20. That's the Leafeon V-Star, has dropped 64.5% from $56.73 down to $20.19. The Suicune V is only sitting at $13.76 right now. It's dropped from $52.54. It's dropped about 73.5%, almost 74% on that one. Irida has dropped over 74%, almost 75%. It's currently selling for $13.09, down from $51.77. Absolutely crazy. Here's these gold cards that we were talking about earlier on. Arceus V-Star, one of the cards that's currently selling above $50 in Crown Zenith, sitting at $50.04. It's only dropped about 36.83%. This is another interesting one. It was bought out opening weekend. It did jump over $100. It did really, really well, but has since obviously been absolutely destroyed. The Origin Form Palkia V-Star went from $76.55 down to $34.07, so that one's dropped about 55.5%. Deoxys VMAX has dropped $56.91 down to $10.28, so an 81.94% drop. Very, very strong. Here's another card that's doing really well, above $40 still, Mewtwo V-Star. However, this one did start out over $100 at $114.70. It is now sitting at $45.93, so almost a 60% drop on that one. The Giratina V-Star still performing really well, only about a 31% drop from release. It started out at $113.55. It's still selling above $75, sitting at $78.23 currently. Then we've got the Dialga V-Star Gold card. This one has dropped from $83.35 down to $32.04. So we're looking at almost a sub $30 gold card right now. It's dropped 61.56%. Then we've got a few more that we're going to look at. The Radiant Charizard has been destroyed. This one's dropped almost 81.5% from $25.34 down to $4.71. The Friends cards, the Friends and Sinnoh and the Friends and Hisui have dropped 77% and 71% respectively, down to $5.59 for the Friends and Sinnoh and $5.90 for the Friends and Hisui. Alessa's Sparkle, still the most expensive full art trainer in the bunch, however, not performing very well. This was above $30 for a very long time. It's down to $17.76 currently, about a 54% drop from where it started. And the Secret Rare Pikachu, Holy buckets, this one is crazy. 72.45. That's actually a little bit low. This card was starting, pre-order prices were starting well above $100 for this one. Nobody knew how tough it was going to be to pull. It ended up being like one per case, one out of every 100 packs, which is very, very strong pull rates for something like this. It has dropped from $72.45 down to $6.35. That is a 91.24% drop, by far the biggest drop that Crown Zenith has experienced so far. Very interesting to see how far this one. It's a beautiful card, and it's great that it's so inexpensive right now. $6.35, basically just barely above the price of the birthday Pikachu from Celebrations, which crazy, boggles my mind. Very, very interesting stuff. But I want to share this data, kind of give you an insight of what we looked at with Shining Legends to what we're, I know a lot of people weren't around during Shining Legends. Things were a lot different when Shining Legends released. Demand just was not there for specialty sets. Obviously now, like I said, things are a lot different. A lot of times, a lot of these specialty sets that come out are more reprints, focus more on artwork and things like that. Obviously, a lot has changed. A lot has happened. We obviously went through a big pandemic and things like that where supply just dried up, demand shot through the roof. I'm not saying Crown Zenith is going to follow suit with what Shining Legends did, but if you look at some of the numbers and how things have performed, it's very interesting just to look at, pick your brain, make you think a little bit. I hope you enjoy the content. If you do, please hit that subscribe button down below. Leave a like, leave a comment. It goes a really long way for the algorithm. Share the channel. I love you guys. We'll be back tomorrow. Until next time, peace.